Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for Larta to be here and discussing this topic of exploring adjacent markets with entrepreneurs who have successfully done this. I'm Bandhana Katoj, Director of Sustainability at Larta Institute. And with that, I would like to welcome Gavin McIntyre, co-founder and Director for Business Development of Ecovative Designs. Welcome, Gavin.
Thank you so much for having me.
So it's really a pleasure to have you here. I just realized that we have actually worked together for last 10 years because your first program with Larta Institute during your NSF program was in 2010. It has been a fantastic journey for us, and through this time we've seen Ecovative really growing and reaching the limits of sky. And I'm really excited to discuss with you about Ecovative.
Yeah, certainly. So Ecovative is a 14-year-old biomaterials company that's really focused on challenging the ways that we today consume both products that we use in our everyday lives and even food. So we focus on the industries that have the most profound and likely negative impact on our planet. Principally, the use of single-use plastics, an area that we serve in protective packaging, as well as animal agriculture, where we're currently growing alternatives for whole cuts of meat that are traditionally harvested from animals. Our business is focused on using mycelium, which is the vegetative or root-like structure of mushrooms. And we really use these materials because in nature, mushrooms are nature's recycling system. So they're quite adept at taking things that we would consider waste, things like leaf litter, coarse woody debris, or agricultural residue, and transforming those into higher value products. And that's precisely what we do in a number of fields, ranging from protective packaging, building construction, and of course now in the food and agriculture industry.
It's really fascinating for me to see starting from packaging to food. Why don't you elaborate a little bit about that journey and how did you take steps from one vertical to the other?
Yeah, certainly. So when we start any particular market discovery, we really focus on problem identification first and foremost. So when we first looked into the realm of single-use plastics, we were very focused on plastic foams particularly. The reason being is that oftentimes plastic foams are used in non-durable applications, things like protective packaging or single-use cups and plates. And if you look at our landfills, the EPA did an assessment in the early 2000s and found that up to 25% of our landfill volume are things like these single-use plastics. So we knew that they were having a burden both on our planet as well as on municipalities. First and foremost, I think it's really important that you do not design in a box. Whenever you're designing something or developing something from a lab bench to a proof of concept on a workbench even, it's important to garner direct feedback from whomever the prospective user is within that particular market. So within the realm of packaging, as I mentioned, we went out and we approached prospective customers, and these weren't just the product managers. These were the people that were on the floor that actually engaged directly with the packaging and to ensure that we were solving not only a problem for the management team from a cost or economic perspective, but also from the perspective of the person that engages with it directly. So it's about considering the entire value chain or supply chain and making sure that you identify the individual needs within each of those categories and resolving basically a holistic problem rather than just designing it for what you think the individual stakeholder may be. So direct stakeholder engagement is really important. Beyond that, what we've always found is that we've had a lot of success reaching out to industries within their relevant fields. These are academic leaders, so professors within universities, industry leaders, so those that either were in the industry and then have retired, or perhaps are still functioning in that industry today, and just reached out either through direct network, things like LinkedIn as an example, or through existing advisors in order to garner feedback. They're typically willing to provide some degree of time in order to field your questions and to assess your idea and provide feedback. They're experts in their industry and they tend to be very passionate about it. So they love talking about those particular activities. And so I haven't had any issue from reaching out to CMOs of Fortune 500 companies to academic leaders that publish dozens of papers a year and ask for support. And they've almost entirely come back and provided that particular guidance. And in some instances, even joined advisory boards. And we have advisory boards depending on whichever field we go into, because each field requires its own domain expertise, and that expertise is out there and tends to be willing to help.
Thank you. In terms of, I remember when we had our previous discussions, you had mentioned about the importance of technology push and market pull and how that translates into new verticals, into looking into adjacent market. Can you elaborate on that kind of whiteboard process you've gone through as you expanded into these different areas?
Yeah, certainly. So when we first developed our first core technology, which we call myco-composite, and I'll show you an example. So this is an example of our myco-composite product. It is mycelium that has bound together agricultural residue to create a cohesive material that looks and feels like a conventional plastic foam. So in this instance, we were hearing from the general industry, from those that use protective packaging and building insulation, that there was a real need because of environmental recognition for a compostable alternative to plastic foams. That was a real market pull, which told us that if we could create a economically viable and performance-ready product, that there'd be a market behind it. We did have to sit back and assess between building construction, one of the largest industries that consumes plastic foams, protective packaging, and even automotive components, to determine which area our product served best based on its performance attributes and our economics. That's what led us into the protective packaging field. Now, after we had originally licensed and commercialized our protective packaging product, we were then left with the observation that what we do is grow materials that provide structure. And from that perspective, we knew that we had this biological assembly and manufacturing platform that was agnostic of species. So it could be something that was tough and tenacious and inedible. It could be something that was gourmet and delicious and that you'd want to eat all the time. And where else could we take a wide range of mushroom species and apply this concept of structure to that industry? From a market pull perspective, or a technology push and a market pull perspective, is one, we saw the market pull for alternative protein sources, folks that were buying lots of products in the ground meat category, as well as a technology push perspective where we knew we could create this gourmet edible structure that could unlock an entirely new category within the alternative protein and food space. And that's what led us to the At Last Food Company, which we launched last year.
What is next for Ecovative Designs?
Yeah, certainly. So we have two mycelium platform technologies, and they are wide-reaching in terms of their scope. And so it's really twofold. So first and foremost, with our myco-composite technology, which is our most mature technology, is we're looking to foster more partnerships, both domestically and internationally, for those that want to grow their own mycelium-based products. The other thing that we're looking into is we're currently scaling up our food platform in order to start delivering our product to shelves, and you will be able to find our My Bacon product in the Northeast, both in grocery stores as well as some food service outlets. And we're starting to look at other verticals. So within the food industry is so broad. And if we think about different categories of meat, the texture of a chicken breast is very different than a fish fillet. And we believe that we can unlock those different textures by using different mushroom species. And we're now cultivating a whole wide range of species to unlock the next food product beyond bacon. And so those are areas that we're currently putting a lot of time and attention.
This is an amazing journey, Gavin, and it has always been, every time I've interacted with you, it has always blown my mind off that this is a perfect example of technology beyond borders. The verticals, everything you have been able to do with the technology is fascinating, and a great example for many people in the audience here. So thank you so much for always be willing to share your stories. And if you have any final words of wisdom for the companies out here, that we would like to hear that, and then we can conclude the session.